Yo, what's going on guys, Arekkz here, and welcome back to another Division video. It's the weekend, which of course means it is time for another vendor reset. A chance to look at what items are on sale, work out whether or not they are any good this week. So as always, if you guys do enjoy this, you do find it helpful, then a like would be super appreciated. Any questions, drop them down below. But let's not waste any time and let's get started by speaking to our special equipment vendor. Of course, as always, the exotic weapons remain constant at the top. However, as I spoke about last week, sometimes the non-exotic talent roles do rotate. So of course, you'll always have the exotic talent staying the same, but the other talents do of course change. So I'm going to go through these very quickly. Cassidy has Predatory and Sustained. Pakan has Accurate and Prepared. Liberator has Focused and Intense. Centurion, Expert and Skilled. And Historian has Swift and Skilled. So those ones, as mentioned, going to go over them very quickly. I've spoken about these weapons in depth in the past, so by now you guys should know, whether or not they're any good or whatnot. But compare them with the ones that you already have, and you may find that on occasion they have a better role. But regardless, those are your exotics. Turn your attention to the usual high-end weapons. You have the Rhino Special. This is of course the sidearm that you can put an optic on, Expert and Sustained. You also have Tactical UMP with Accurate, Hurried and Ambusher. Enhanced ACRE with Vicious, Talented and Adept. An SASG with Predatory, Unforgiving and Accurate. Of course, the SASG itself as a model is quite popular in PvP right now because of course the stagger and it is one of the nicer shotgun options you do have. So this one specifically, not necessarily the greatest role, but just something to consider. One of those kind of, if you can't beat them, join them situations, then you might want to grab yourself an SASG. There's also a Surplus SVD with Predatory, Meticulous and Disciplined, and an M249B with Swift, Predatory and Vicious. Once again, going through the usual gear pieces, make sure you take a good look at these because of course they do have, different options, different roles and whatnot, but I'm just going to go over the high-end ones because of course I don't know what builds you guys are running, but you have an Operator Mask with Refreshed, you have a Gunslinger chest piece with Rapid, a Tactical Pack with Inventive, a Tactical Knee Pads with Accomplished, Gunslinger holster with Recovered, and a pair of tactical gloves with Decisive. So nothing kind of especially exciting there, but either way, those are your high-end options, and again, check the gear pieces depending on your build. As for your mods, Prototype Electronics mod, critical hit chance with plus 1%, and Prototype Performance mod with smart cover damage resilience with plus 3%. Now, unlike last week, I'm not going to forget this week, the special blueprints vendor does once again have a blueprint for a lightweight M4. So, if you watched my video, and of course I did put it in the comments afterwards because I did mistakenly miss it, there are loads of vendors, it's quite easy to miss things, I do apologise. But this is a must-buy. The lightweight M4 is a very strong assault rifle model. It is one of the most used weapons, or most used assault rifles at least, in PvP. So definitely buy this because of course being a blueprint, it means you have infinite possibilities to re-roll it, or to recraft it, and then eventually hopefully get what you want. So definitely grab this. Everyone should have this blueprint in their kiosk. You don't necessarily have to go and craft it right now, but I think everybody should have this. So if you missed it last week, it is still there. Grab it for just over 1,000 Phoenix credits. It is well worth your time. There's also an ACR blueprint, but we don't really care about that. Lightweight M4 is the one you want. Moving on from there to the advanced weaponry vendor, you have a Rhino with Expert and Toxic, an AUG A3 Para XS with Swift, Fierce and Dominant, not necessarily the greatest role, a military AK-47M with Talented, Fierce and Adept, double barrel sawn-off, not really worried about this, but Trained, Fierce and Sustained, an M700 Carbon with Commanding, Adept and Elevated, and an Infantry MG5, which is actually quite a strong LMG just in general, so if you are kind of considering using that in PvE, then it might be something to think about. This has self-preserved, skilled and competent. I'm always a huge fan of skilled, I've kind of said this time and time again, but it does have a high requirement, so unless you're spec'd for it, it can be quite hard to unlock, which is predominantly why it's better in the free slot. But regardless, that's an option to roll out. As mentioned, you also have competent, so not necessarily the best role, but still a decent option if you're looking for something a little bit different. As for your vendors in the main hall and the base of operations, the gear vendor, not necessarily a kind of must-buy, but at the bottom there is a Prototype Performance mod with plus 3.5% turret damage. As a Firecrest advocate and someone that loves to run with the Firecrest set and turrets, this is of course a nice thing to grab, so if at some point you are missing turret mods, then that's one thing you could consider. Moving on from there to your safe houses, first up starting at Autumn's Hope, there is a mod down here, not necessarily again something you have to buy right now, but I have spoken time and time again about the importance of skill haste. This is a plus 3% skill haste mod, so of course that's important in 1.6 in light of some of the delays or the extensions to the cooldown. So of course skill haste is now a way to speed up your skill cooldown. So if you do have a chance to stack this, obviously it's typically better to try and roll it on gear so you can then mod for stuff like health, but it is something to consider. So if you don't have these, it's worth holding on to at least a few. Moving on from there to the Wolves Den safe house. Now this one is a little bit of a stretch and something that I just kind of like to have in my bag, but you have a Rhino special here with Expert and Cool Headed. Again, The electronics requirement for this is a little bit higher, depending on, of course, how you're spec'd. But if you are running a electronic spec build, then cool-headed is such a good talent. It's a little bit harder to get a hold of now because, of course, you don't have it on Caduceus. It doesn't roll on assault rifles. There are fewer weapons or fewer weapon archetypes where you can find it. So it is a bit of a rare talent these days, and it is so incredibly good. So if you do have it on a sidearm, it's one of those things that you can kind of just pull your sidearm out, get a few headshots, get your skills back. So definitely very, very useful. So I'd say if you have the chance, grab it, hold on to it. Obviously, if you're not spec towards it, then it might not be one for you. But if you do have an electronics focused build, I cannot recommend this enough. Then after that, jumping over to the east side of the map and taking a look at the Ward Safehouse, there is actually a mod here. We've seen this a lot in previous weeks, and you probably picked them up from, prior recommendations, but there is another prototype performance mod with plus 6% first aid self-heal. This is a pretty high roll, and this is, of course, a very good talent to have, because as I said before, in 1.6, the way that skills have changed, first aid is not as good unless you're heavily spec'd into skill power. So one of the ways to kind of get more out of your first aid, especially if you're not spec'd for it, is to basically stack first aid self-heal mods. So this is something where if you haven't got them, definitely grab them. You can at least get some decent mileage out of it. But as mentioned, they've shown up a fair bit right now, so I imagine by now a lot of you guys have already got them. Then finally, for the safe houses right up at the top northeast is the Crypt. And this guy's selling an enhanced AUG A3P with Determined, Vicious, and Fierce. Obviously not necessarily the best SMGs. Typically, again, people lean more towards the MP5, the MP7, to a certain extent the PP19. However, decent talents on this one. Fierce is nice, Vicious is nice. You could roll out Determined, so you have a better talent in that place, and you can actually have a relatively decent roll. So again, if you're looking for an SMG, then this is something you could consider. Moving on from there to the Dark Zone vendors. First up, the DZ03 vendor, where you get your weapons. You have a military M9 with Expert and Swift, a tactical Vector 45 ACP with Skilled, Deadly, and Capable, an enhanced ACRE with Responsive, Accurate, and Competent, a custom M870 MCS, Meticulous, Accurate, Responsive, custom M44 with Talented, Determined, and Sustained, and finally a military RPK-74M with Brutal, Sustained, and Dominant. Nothing especially exciting in that list. And then finally for the Dark Zone vendors, jumping up to DZ06, because the other vendors didn't have anything interesting, your usual kind of gear pieces, just to kind of scroll through these in case you want to see them. You have a Lone Star Mask, you have a Reclaimer Vest with plus health roll on it, Final Measure Backpack, also with health on it, as well as a Dominant Electronics Roll, Hunter's Faith Knee Pads, Hunter's Faith Holster, and also a Sentry's Cool pair of gloves. Moving on from there to the Dark Zone checkpoints, first one worth calling out is West 34th Street. Not necessarily the best archetype, but you do have a Tactical Vector 45 ACP with Skilled, Fierce, and Deadly. Two of those are, of course, nice talents for the SMG. You could roll out Skilled given the high electronics requirement, roll in something that is slightly more useful, and you could actually have a nice set of talents on that gun. Unfortunately, not the best SMG, but a very nice set of talents. And that, my friends, is pretty much it. The other vendors don't have anything especially exciting, so a pretty standard week. Again, no kind of god rolls, but definitely do pick up that lightweight M4 if you didn't pick up the blueprint last week. A couple of other potentials this week as well, but once again, you're going to need to be a little bit open-minded to try and sort of, consider them. But either way, that is your week. So hopefully you found this helpful. Again, if you did, then a like would be super appreciated. Any questions, drop them down below. And take it easy. Catch you next time. Peace out.